Jihad, the Machine Crusade, and the Battle of Corran, which introduced the seminal conflicts and events that form the foundations of the whole Dune universe. Indisputably, Frank Herbert was a genius. Dune is the best-selling and most beloved science fiction novel of all time. From the beginning of our monumental task, we realized that it would not only be impossible, but also foolish to attempt to imitate Frank Herbert's writing style. Both of us were strongly influenced by his writing, and some fans have remarked on certain similarities in style. However, we consciously chose to write these books to capture the feel and scope of Dune, using aspects of Frank Herbert's style, but with our own pacing and syntax. We are pleased to report that since the publication of House Atreides, the sales of Frank Herbert's original Dune Chronicles have gone up dramatically. 2 6-hour TV miniseries starring William Hurt and Susan Sarandon, Frank Herbert's Dune and Frank Herbert's Children of Dune, have been broadcast to large audiences and wide acclaim, while winning Emmy Awards. They are 2 of the 3 most watched shows in the history of the Sci-Fi Channel. At last, after more than 9 years of preparation, we feel the time is right for Dune 7. Upon poring over Frank Herbert's outline and notes, we realized that the breadth and scope of the story would have resulted in a novel of more than 1,300 pages. For this reason, the story is being presented in 2 volumes, Hunters of Dune and the forthcoming Sandworms of Dune. Much more of the epic remains to be written, and we intend to create additional exciting novels, telling other parts of the grand, brilliant tale that Frank Herbert laid out. The saga of Dune is far from over. Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, April 2006. Following the 3,500-year reign of the tyrant Leto II, an empire was left to fend for itself. During the famine times and the subsequent scattering, the remnants of the human race cast themselves far into the wilderness of space. They fled to unknown realms where they sought riches and safety to no avail. For 1,500 years, these survivors and their descendants endured terrible hardships, a whole reorganization of humanity. Stripped of its energy and resources, the ancient government of the old empire fell away. New power groups took root and grew strong, but never again would humans allow themselves to depend upon a monolithic leader or a key finite substance. Single points of failure. Some say the scattering was Leto II's golden path, a crucible in which to strengthen the human race forever, to teach us a lesson we could not forget. But how could one man, even a man-god who was partially a sandworm, willingly inflict such suffering upon his children? Now that descendants of the lost ones are returning from the scattering, we can only imagine the true horrors our brothers and sisters faced out there. Guild Bank Records, Gamu Branch. Even the most learned of us cannot imagine the scope of the scattering. As a historian, I am dismayed to think of all the knowledge that has been lost forever, the accurate records of triumphs and tragedies. Entire civilizations rose and fell, while those who remained in the old empire sat in complacency. New weapons and technologies were spawned by the hardships of the famine times. What enemies did we inadvertently create? What religions, distortions, and social processes did the tyrant set in motion? We can never know. And I fear that this ignorance will come back to haunt us. Sister Tamerlane, Chapter House Archives. Our own estranged brothers, those lost Tleilaxu who vanished in the turmoil of the scattering, have come back to us. But they are changed in fundamental ways. They bring an improved strain of face dancers with them, asserting that they designed these shapeshifters themselves. My analysis of the lost Tleilaxu, however, indicates that they are clearly inferior to us. They cannot even create spice from axolotl tanks, but they claim to have developed superior face dancers? How can that be? And the Honored Matres. They make overtures of alliance, yet their actions show only brutality and the enslavement of conquered peoples. They have destroyed Arrakis. How can we have faith in them or in the lost Tleilaxu? Master Sightale, sealed notes found in burned lab on Tleilax. Duncan Idaho and Sheeana have stolen our no-ship and flown off to points unknown. They took with them many heretical sisters, even the Gola of our Bashar Miles Teg. With our newly forged alliance, I am tempted to command all Bene Gesserits and Honored Matres to turn their attention to recapturing this ship and its valuable passengers. But I will not. Who can find a no-ship out in the vast universe? More importantly, we can never forget that a far more dangerous enemy is coming for us. Emergency message from Murbella, Reverend Mother Superior and Great Honored Matre. 3 years after escape from Chapter House. Memory is a weapon sharp enough to inflict deep wounds. The Mentats lament. On the day he died, Arrakis, the planet commonly known as Dune, died with him. Dune, lost forever. In the archives chamber of the fleeing no-ship Ithaca, the Gola of Miles Teg reviewed the desert world's final moments. Melange-scented steam wafted from a stimulant beverage at his left elbow, but the 13-year-old ignored it, descending instead into deep Mentat focus. These historical records and holo-images held great fascination for him. This was where and how his original body had been killed. How an entire world had been murdered. Arrakis, the legendary desert planet, now no more than a charred ball. Projected above a flat table, the archival images showed Honored Matre war vessels gathering above the mottled tan globe. The immense, undetectable no-ships, like the stolen one on which Teg and his fellow refugees now lived, wielded firepower superior to anything the Bene Gesserit had ever employed. Traditional atomics were little more than a pinprick by comparison. Those new weapons must have been developed out in the scattering. Teg pursued a Mentat projection. Human ingenuity born out of desperation? Or was it something else entirely? In the floating image, the bristling ships opened fire, unleashing incineration waves with devices the Bene Gesserit had since named obliterators. The bombardment had continued until the planet was devoid of life. The sandy dunes were turned to black glass. Even Arrakis's atmosphere caught fire. Giant worms and sprawling cities, people and sand plankton, everything annihilated. Nothing could have survived down there. Not even him. Now, nearly 14 years later, and in a vastly changed universe, the gangly teenager adjusted the study chair to a more comfortable height. Reviewing the circumstances of my own death. Again. By strict definition, Teg himself was a clone rather than a Gola grown of cells gathered from a dead body, though the latter was the word most people used to describe him. Inside his young flesh lived an old man, a veteran of numerous campaigns for the Bene Gesserit. He could not remember the last few moments of his life, but these records left little doubt. The senseless annihilation of Dune.